Princess Celestia the Changeling Queen, Chapter 9, Part 2. Alternia and Celestia. Celestia and Alternia. That was all Twilight could think of. Were they two beings brought together by fate on one night? Or were they the same changeling? Equestria Twilight Sparkle? The words filtered into the unicorn's head, and she blinked her eyes to see the rest of the company staring at her, worried frowns creasing their brows. Twilight rubbed her temples with ink-stained hooves.
I'm here. I'm having trouble believing it all.
Shining Armor nodded, his head shaking slowly from side to side. I have the same problem. I've served directly under the princess for my whole career. All to find out that she's a changeling? It really boggles my mind.
Well, I think that she was telling the truth. I know I can't prove it, and I don't like that she is, but that's what I think,
said Applejack.
I trust Alternia. Her story was so sad,
whimpered Fluttershy. Rarity nodded, but her brow furrowed and her visage uncharacteristically darkened.
I know that it was sad, dear Fluttershy, but that does not mean that it is necessarily true. Our Changeling Queen has left many questions unanswered in her tale.
Cadence glanced reprovingly at the ivory unicorn.
Rarity, I do think that Alternia, or that my aunt, is telling the truth, although I do agree with you that there are some things that I would like to know from her, like what happened to the original Celestia and where she is.
But how did she know about Auntie Luna's return? Piped up Blue Blood.
And how did she pick us to be the bearers of the elements of harmony?
Mused Twilight.
More importantly, are you a changeling?
Demanded Rarity, hoof pointed like a dagger at Blue Blood. The others stared at Rarity with wide eyes and raised brows as she glared at the bemused prince.
What? You are the nephew of the princess, are you not?
Hissed Rarity.
I'm her ward! She calls me nephew and I call her auntie!
Protested Blue Blood. Rarity gawked and her cheeks began to turn red in embarrassment.
Oh, well, I was just checking.
Applejack sighed at her friend's melodramatic antics, while Twilight turned to the final members of the group.
So, Rainbow Dash, what do you think?
Privately, Twilight had expected the boisterous Pegasus would have been the first to speak. Instead, Rainbow had been silent throughout the entire narrative. She hadn't made a single sound during the duel between Alternia and Chrysalis, and now her normally focused magenta eyes were flickering left and right.
I don't know, Twilight. I don't know if I should trust her or if I should throw her out of Canterlot. She's Celestia, but she's not Celestia. She's Alternia, or is she? I mean, she has been Celestia for so long, right? God, I don't know!
Groaned Rainbow as she threw her hooves into the air. Twilight smiled wryly and placed a hoof on her friend's shoulder.
Rainbow, I don't know either. The best thing that we can do is figure this all out together. Spike, what do you think?
The dragon blinked and stared at Twilight. Wait, you're asking for my opinion? You never ask for my opinion.
The princess raised you, Spike. In this matter, your opinion is as important as every pony else's,
explained the unicorn to her assistant. Spike pursed his lips, his eyes slightly narrowed. Well, I know the princess can't prove what she says, but still, how she told her story was exactly like how she told me stories when I was a baby dragon.
You still are a baby dragon, Spike, said
Twilight. Yeah, I know that, Twilight, but the point is, I think that she was the Celestia that I knew all this time, and I trust that Celestia, concluded the dragon. Twilight nodded her agreement with Spike, as she wrote down the thought in her notes.
That's very good, Spike. So what about you, Pinkie Pie?
Pinkie still wore a smile, but her chin was on her hoof, and she seemed to be pondering something rather serious.
I think I might just ask Alternia to join me in our prank wars. Do you know how awesome a partner she'd make? I mean, we could do so many fun things together and pull off some great pranks. Besides, I think Alternia looks like she needs some cheering up.
The ponies and dragons stared at Pinkie, blinking. Philomena had tucked her head into her wing, and her soft giggles echoed throughout the chamber.
You don't get it? Celestia and Alternia makes Alternia? No good? Alright, so what about Altestia? No? Princess Celtelia? Then, okay, let's try Queen Celestia of Equestria.
Pinkie suddenly gasped.
Hey, wait, did any pony know that Celestia, Alternia, and Equestria rhyme?
Twilight slowly put her hoof to her head and scratched her suddenly frazzled mane.
Pinkie Pie, I think we should just stick to Princess for now, but you do have a point. The princess does need cheering up, so we should probably go and find her.
Luna's cry of despair tore a hole in my heart. But while my mind was filled with hundreds of phrases of encouragement, none came to my lips. With nothing else to do, I summoned my magic and levitated Luna's crown to her. Yet she batted it aside with her hoof, throwing the unfortunate piece of regalia to the floor.
We do not deserve to be a princess of Equestria, or Celestia's sister.
She sniffed. I cringed and knelt next to Luna, but she shuffled away and turned so that I could only see her back.
Why not?
I asked.
We beat our own sister to the edge of death. If we cannot even take care of our own sister, then how can we care for our own ponies? We know the punishment for our crimes. Perhaps we should pay for them.
She sobbed. I opened my mouth but uttered no sound. I had to comfort Luna, somehow, and in some way, but what do I say? I shifted closer to Luna, trying to make eye contact with her, but she kept avoiding my gaze.
Luna, please, what will Equestria do without you?
I begged.
They will do what they have for 1,000 years and listen to thee. Our ponies have flourished and entered into prosperity unheard of under thy guidance. Yet we repaid thee by invading thy most sacred memories and repeated what our sister did 1,000 years ago. Why art thou even trying to comfort us? Leave us now!
My breath caught in my throat and I froze. She was right. Why was I trying to help this foolish alicorn? She forced her way into my head, peered upon my most treasured memories without my permission, and if not for Luna, Celestia would have never needed to make me impersonate her. How much political headache and mountains of paperwork did I have to go through to restore her to her former position? How much time and infuriating effort did I have to give to teach Luna about the modern era? What had she and her sister ever do for my Equestria? A cold chill like flowing ice water seeped into my chest. I flexed my muscles and raised myself from the floor. I sensed the ends of my hooves go numb as I trotted to the door. Luna continued to weep, but I didn't look back. As my hooves stepped over the door jamb, I heard Luna spoke. It was like she was talking through a tunnel, but the words rung with an awful finality.
Alternia, tell Twilight Sparkle we have left to roam more solitary fields, where our presence cannot harm any pony or being.
I felt my heart drop to my stomach. Terror coursed through my veins, all of my thoughts of vengeance, of anger, that was all banished.
No,
I said. I spun around and cantered quickly to Luna's side. My horn glowed as I seized the alicorn and lifted her into the air, and with a heave, I deposited her onto the observatory's lone couch. She hit the velvet antique in a cloud of dust. The princess stared at me confused and tried to get up, but I lifted an unyielding hoof to her face.
Luna, I will not let you leave.
I rasped.
Why not, Alternia?
She gasped.
Because...
I swallowed. I shut my eyes and bit my lips so hard I thought my fangs would draw blood. My teeth ground against each other in indecision. In my heart, I knew why I had stopped her, but I remained paralyzed.
Because what? Because... you're my sister!
I cried. The alicorn froze as if a wendigo had embraced her and stared up at my averted eyes.
What?
Croaked the alicorn. I turned away from Luna as I remembered a time not so long ago.
I first met you 2 years ago.
It was when Nightmare Moon had just been purified by the elements of harmony. What Twilight and her friends didn't know was that I was watching them. From my hiding place in the Everfree Forest, I had observed the events that led to my student and her friends finding the elements. My heart had plummeted. When I watched Twilight fall, my teeth had chattered. When they faced the Manticore, I almost screamed at the trees and my heart nearly dropped to my stomach when Rainbow faced the Shadow Bolts. I sat on the sidelines and did nothing when Twilight faced Nightmare Moon. All the while, I had fought the temptation of blast you to nothingness, and I reminded myself to trust the abilities of my protege.
Gee, Twilight, I thought you were just spouting a whole bunch of hooey, but I reckon we do really represent the elements of friendship.
I smiled at Applejack's statement and reckoned that it was time for me to appear.
Indeed you do.
I released my disguise and summoned my magic. With the moon freed from Nightmare Moon's grasp, I raised the sun into the sky and teleported into the castle. Twilight was the first to see me, and met me with a delighted smile.
Princess Celestia!
I embraced Twilight.
Twilight Sparkle, my faithful student. I knew that you could do it.
Twilight looked up at me, her eyes wide.
But you told me that it was all an old ponytail. I told you that you needed to make some friends, nothing more. I saw the signs of Nightmare Moon's return, and I knew that it was you who had the magic inside to defeat her. But you could not unleash it until you let true friendship into your heart.
As I spoke to Twilight, the corners of my eyes tracked the wisps of smoke wafting away to reveal your form. The first thing I noticed was how frail you looked. Where you had once stood at almost equal height to Celestia, you now barely reached her shoulder. Yet, I had to strain the muscles in my face to stop my brow from furrowing. I knew that if not for you, Celestia would have not needed to force me into a role.
Now, if only another will as well. Princess Luna.
I saw you stiffen at my voice. You looked up with eyes that were moist with regret and trembling in fear. You averted your gaze immediately, but for a moment I was struck silent. I forced my lips to move.
It has been 1,000 years since I've seen you like this.
I knelt by your side, examining you closely for any malignant magic, but found none. All I could see was a young pony on the verge of tears. I was reminded of why I had decided to spare you. That you were not originally a tyrant, but an innocent alicorn I had seen in your sister's memories. An alicorn attempting to pull up a brave front, but was failing. A pony whose safety had been entrusted to me. I wondered what I could offer to staunch those tears. Perhaps you would be cheered up by being given what was being denied to you.
Time to put our differences behind us. We were meant to rule together, little sister.
I barely heard the exclamations of Twilight and her friends. My eyes focused on your downcast face. You didn't speak, or even answer me. I didn't know what else I could offer you. If not equal rule of Equestria, what would comfort you? So I gave you the only gift I could at the time.
Will you accept my friendship?
An unbearable silence that stretched on and on met my question. I breathed in, ready to let my breath out in a sigh. It seemed that even if I saved you from Nightmare Moon, I couldn't save you from yourself. What would I even say to Celestia? Then you threw yourself up at me. I started and sprang to my hooves, only to feel your nose nuzzling my neck. My mouth widened, and I stared at the alicorn, crying joyfully into my shoulder.
I'm so sorry! I missed you, big sister.
I felt my cheeks dampen as you leant against my chest. With blurry eyes, I smiled and rubbed my chin against your forehead. Today, I had gained something that I had thought I lost forever.
I have missed you too.
I had gained a new sister. Oh, that was really sweet. I actually do hope that helped Luna feel a little bit better, because all that pain, yeah, that's gotta suck, a lot. Now let's get on to our geniuses of donators. Top donators: Dash of Evergreen, Peter Coulthard, J Tin Man, Darkside, and Ponyman. CourierCruz CI, Strix, Zar630, Narwhals, Delta Omega, RuneScythe9852, Daspo, Rhine Dragonwolf, Hunter Norman, Austin Rowland, Secret Moon, Tall Rasha, The Toilet Snake, Sword Brother and Mordred, Ron and Wandering, Enderai63, Random Person Man Guy, Easy, Jack Kedge, Starlight Glimmer, Squiddy Boy, David E. Sanchez, Soul Dragon, Gaggy, Trey, Shadow Drake, Joe Piercy, Alex F, Rainbow Dash, Teal K. Anderson, TV Killer, John Becker, Leon Reynolds, Zach Rakau, Mr. ECU, Leslie Prickett, Edgar Garcia, One Kingdom 1, Nissa Rusan, Vizuri, Dyslexic Character Sheets, and Just a Random Boy. Thank you all very much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.